Hello, everyone, and welcome to this data protection conversation. Today, we're going to talk about data privacy and compliance. I am joined today by Vinny Choinsky, Senior Analyst at ESG. Hi, Vinny.
Hello, Christophe.
So let's get into it. There's quite a bit going on with data privacy, data compliance, lots of regulations that have come up in the past few years. And we wanted to understand where the market is. And we talked to 300 professionals in IT and business leaders, people who are responsible for these topics, and got some great results that we're going to share with you. So first of all, when you look at the data privacy and compliance programs, what we see is that there is actually quite a bit of maturity out there in the market, which is a very good thing. For example, 21% reported having had a program between 11 to 15 years, and 12% have had a program for more than 15 years. Clearly, the focus is not a new thing. It also allows organizations to implement technologies. The question becomes, does it really work? So we looked specifically at, first of all, the frequency of audits and whether people could actually pass those compliance audits. And it turns out that organizations do get audited quite frequently. 37% reported being audited 1 to 5 times in the past 3 years. Another 29%, 6 to 10 times in the past 3 years. And what we saw and what we found is that a lot of organizations actually fail. So 31% said they never fail, but if you look closely at the data, 2 to 3 times in terms of failures was reported by almost 50% of organizations. So Vinny, can you tell us more about the type of consequences that happen when people are in non-compliance or organizations fail their audits?
Sure. So when we asked about the biggest concerns related to being non-compliant, you might think that fines and penalties would be the number one, the biggest part of that. It turned out to be a pretty balanced chart. Reputation, public perception, impact to productivity were just as important or equally as important to the fines that were paid or even the legal fees that might be paid in that category. But I think even a bigger impact might be customers. I think they're getting more savvy, and I think they're paying more attention to where and who they give their data to, and they want to make sure the companies or businesses that they share their data with keep it secure. We're also seeing more and more automation and visibility with the applications and tools that people are using. There is a little bit of a persona thing going on where, who's responsible in the IT organization when you have this visibility, and then who's going to lead the charge.
Right. And I will say that what we've seen is really also the advent of the data privacy officer, which is a function or a position that is sometimes mandated by compliance requirements. And that probably also explains and helps explain the maturity of certain programs and how there's now this focus on compliance. Now, Vinny, I'd like to ask you a question about the cloud component of this. Can you tell us more about what's going on with all of that cloud data?
Sure. So we obviously like to keep a pulse on what's happening with cloud resident data, right? Whether that's data protection, data management. People move to the cloud and sometimes expect things to happen automatically. When we asked a question about data loss in the cloud in 2020, only 18% said they thought they lost data in the cloud. When we re-asked the question in this new survey, 61% suspect that they have lost data in the cloud.
Well, so that's a lot of data that's leaked or disappeared in the cloud. But let's focus on the technologies. What type of technologies are at play? What did people report in terms of what they use for security in general terms to prevent those compliance issues?
Yeah, so when we asked the enterprise what tools they were using, data protection, backup and recovery, or disaster recovery led the charge. They were followed by your traditional security tools and applications like data in use all the way down to key management. But I think that fact that data protection, backup and recovery, and disaster recovery were number one is because ransomware is so prevalent these days and so much in the news. You can't run security applications if you don't have access to your systems.
Right. And what's also interesting is that privacy enhancing technology spending is actually expected to outpace data security spending over the next 12 to 18 months. So, Vinny, I'd like to double click on the technologies and specifically the privacy enhancing technologies. Where do you see most investments going? What did the research actually show us?
Yeah, so the top three, starting with number three, is data minimization. if you don't have as much sensitive data, then you don't have as much to manage, right? Managing personal information is always important, but now you're starting to see confidential computing. You're kind of climbing the ladder in technology, where systems isolate sensitive data when they run an operation. So only the code is in contact with the sensitive data. It doesn't have people or accounts other than, you know, the application account to run and manage the data. So I think, you know, we're getting more and more stringent on how we're manipulating sensitive data. And Christophe, what I might ask you is, where do you see the biggest investment in this area?
So 35% told us that data backup and recovery is the area in which they see data security technology investments happening in the next 12 to 18 months. 29% of respondents by data leak and loss prevention. Also, investments will happen in data in transit technologies and data classification and data discovery. So all in all, lots of activity, lots of things going on, lots of investment going into data privacy and compliance. This is an area that at ESG we're going to keep focusing on. And for those of you who are subscribers, please check the reports and briefs that we have produced on this topic. Thank you for your time.